Okay, so I'm just gonna try to use like every day to at least tell a little bit more of the story so that we don't like waste any days. These vlogs are gonna change pretty soon just because like I actually have made headway in my legal cases, but just for the sake of this channel, I wanna keep the story going. So I just told you guys the story of the Rico case, but let's go back to even really before any cases start, and we're gonna go back to kind of co-parenting. So virtually, this starts. I was a stay-at-home mom. The first job I got out of high school, I did AmeriCorps. That was like I worked a job in high school where I was working at in men's fragrance or whatever, and then my I after high school I did AmeriCorps. Basically, I did AmeriCorps for a year, and then in the end of my AmeriCorps year, I got pregnant. And basically a boyfriend who I was like living with, I got knocked up. Like let's just call it what it is. I got knocked up and I got baby trapped. So, you know how people are talking about like reproductive coercion? I feel like that's what happened to me because like it's weird to hear it now cuz my mom goes back to what I was saying at that time, and she was saying like, "Yeah, I remember all these things that you were saying and you didn't wanna have the baby, but what happened is, like, he really wanted the baby, and so you told me that you were having the baby for him." I don't know, I can't really think back to that long ago, but that's what she says happened. That sounds right. Um, and Okay, so what did I do after that? So at that time, when I worked that AmeriCorps job, I used that money because I was still like living at home or whatever. And we can go, I think I told the story of my upbringing. Maybe I'll record a video after that that kind of just goes over some more financial things. But so I am living at home still, but like we have like two houses on one lot with a garage and attic, more than enough space. And then like the my daughter's dad has his own home. It's got like five bedrooms, two baths, a master, like a really large backyard, like a fireplace, like a swing set, just the whole thing. It's like we've got basically got two houses that we're working from here, and but I was like, okay, so I just basically I was already kind of like living with him when I got pregnant, and then I had actually been dating him for a while, and I know I tell you guys the story of like my abortion, and I think that some people think that my abortions are like, I don't know, tragic stories or something. I've had two medical pill abortions. One of them I had with my baby's father. Like the pregnancy that I chose to keep, I got pregnant with him before, but I just didn't tell him until after I aborted the baby. Because I just felt like I was like, I want to say I was like 18, or I was 19, something like that. And I had kind of two boyfriends at that time. So it was him and there's this other guy who I was dating, and this guy I had been dating in high school a little bit, and then I was talking to them both at the same time. And the high school guy, I feel like I probably had more in common with, but if you actually go back, and I have a video on my main channel where I tell the story, that guy actually raped me, and I didn't like, I knew I'd gotten raped, but it was like I didn't even understand how to talk about it, how to report it, what to do about it, but I felt like I was his property. And so one thing that happened, and I am not positive if the timelines kind of line up with this, but like I said, so the first time I had gotten pregnant, but then ended up aborting, I think I aborted at like 3 months. And when I first got pregnant, I was like dating both of these guys at the same time. And so this guy who I'd known since high school or whatever, like he kept like I'm not sure if he was like trying to baby trap me. I don't know what the exact situation was, but he kept insinuating all these things. He was like, that's another thing that I wanted, like, and I'll make another video about this, but like there are men who are pussy fiends, and these are like men who are very, very, very straight. and they like really, really like women and like women's bodies and like everything about women. So like he knew all these things about my body that I didn't know. So he could tell like when my boobs were getting bigger, like when my waist was like curvier. There were all of these things, and maybe this is like really explicit, but I want to say this just to put some context here. Like this high school guy, so well, actually, it has to be a little bit. I think I'm getting some ages mixed up because like I didn't actually start having sex at all until I was like 21 or 22. And when I did, I already known this guy since I was like 16 or 17. And then I didn't really tell him that like he was the person who like I had ended up like losing my virginity to until like 2 or 3 years after it happened, because I just felt like it was weird. It was just strange to me, and I didn't so I just, like, I did it, and I told my cousin, like, when it happened, and she was like, "You should tell him. I feel like that's, like" she said, "I feel like that's useful for him to know," and I just sat on that, and I wrote it down. I journaled about it a little bit, but I didn't actually tell him until, like, 3 years later. Anyway, but I'm still talking to this guy, and so I think this was the first time I was ever like pregnant, but I was dating two guys. And um the so the first guy, he started noticing all these changes in my body because like I was obviously like intimate with him or whatever, but like he knew like I don't know, it was, like, really strange. It's almost like he's like a hormone detector or some shit like that. Cause like, I didn't know until I just ended up going to, like, Planned Parenthood and being like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And they were like, "Yeah, you're pregnant," and it was weird because I almost feel like on one hand, the guy who I, like, had lost my virginity to, like, he wanted me to, like, be pregnant, and I'm not sure if he was excited, but he kept, like, kinda insinuating toward it, and I was like, no, no," you know? And then when I realized that, because I put, like, timelines together, it was actually, like, the father of, like, my current kid. It was him because, like, it wasn't like I was, like, I would I was kinda dating both guys at the same time, like, I was talking to them, and I would, like, go over and hang out with them, but I wasn't, like, sleeping with them like, the same time. Like, if it was, like, February and I was sleeping with one guy, I wasn't sleeping with the other guy. For, like, March, I was sleeping with the other guy, like that. So, like, I kinda knew, um, what was happening anyway, so that's how I could tell, like, who was, anyway, that's not the point. Let's go back. These are totally horrible stories, right? Literally horrible stories. Anyway, so we're talking about the baby Trabelo. So I call this it must have been like a month and a half after I actually go have the medical abortion. So I basically tell my mom I'm gonna do it. She was like pretty on board with it because she's like, yeah, I don't think you're like in a position to have, a kid right now. That's crazy. You're gonna ruin your whole future. And I was like, yeah. So, I'd gone to Planned Parenthood. I'd gotten the pill. It was like early enough. So, I was at home. I was by myself, but I took the pill and then, it's kind of like a period cramp. You just like basically piss out the baby or whatever. The fetus actually still does come out. So you can see it. Like I have pictures of it. I think I've shared pictures here. But anyway, so that it wasn't like that bad. It was a couple cramps or whatever. But then I would say like a month later, like I didn't tell either of these guys that that's what happened. I just like I told my mom, I told my cousin, and then I kept like kind of talking to these guys, but I didn't tell them anything about that. And then a month later, I told the father of my current d- child who's alive. And then he was like, "Oh my god," he was so upset. I guess because he's like Catholic or something, so he was so mad. He said like, "You should talk to me about it. I can't believe you did that on your own like that. Like, how could you do this to me?" Like, he was like very hurt by it. And I thought that was strange because it just felt like it wasn't his choice to make, and I still feel like that. Like, maybe I shouldn't have told him. I should just like kept it pushing. Anyway, so I kept dating this guy, and he kept, like, asking me for a baby. Like, we were just, like, dating, like, it wasn't even like we were, like, sleeping together, but he was like, "I really want a child," like, "I really want a baby." And it like, I we were hanging out for sure, but like we weren't even really dating. Like, in my free time, like after my job or something, sometimes I'd go over to his house because I didn't want to be at like my parents' house, and we'd hang out, we'd watch movies. It was fine, but at the same time, like I didn't know this guy very well. We weren't like super compatible or anything. I didn't know much about his life. I knew he had a twin. I knew like a couple of things about him. I knew culturally he was like Hispanic. I knew that, but like I definitely did not know a bunch of things about this person, and he didn't know a bunch of things about me. But still, he was very adamant about wanting a child, and I think I was very naive at that point, and so I just kind of like went with it. I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, fine, okay," like, and then, I told my mom, I was like, "Yeah, like he really wants a child or whatever," and I'd end up actually getting pregnant. And this time I was pregnant and I told him. And I think I'd like stopped dating the other guy because I'm now like dating this guy and I'm like actually, pregnant with his baby. And uh, I don't know, I guess it felt safe a little bit. Like it felt like, oh, like he's got like I don't I at that point I had this rule where I wouldn't date anyone who didn't own property. That was the only really rule I had. I didn't know anything about anything else. I was just like, that's gonna be like my baseline. So it was awful baseline. Awful baseline. I can make a whole other video about the baselines I think you should follow, but that was mine at the time. Dummy. Dummy. Anyway, so I do that. And I just go along with every fucking thing he says. He's like, do this. And I'm like, okay. He's like, do that. I'm like, okay. Because I was just like young, dumb, naive, and I didn't understand that like this was a forever choice for me. So I think at that time I was, let me try to count the years. I was 23. No, 24. I was 24. So it's 24. I have this baby, and for the next 3 years, virtually, I was just like a stay-at-home mom. Um, I kind of tried to go back to school a little bit. I tried to do like daycare. That kind of worked out, kind of did not work out. And then basically around like 2023, I want to say, well, actually, no. In 2014 is the year my daughter was born. And I tried to go back to school then. I kind of did. And I did have support. Like my mom did help with sitting and stuff. And I had help from a couple of other family members. That was also a very bad idea, I realize now. But I tried to like make it so that I would have a career because I'm like, I'm gonna have to support this baby and I don't have any skills, so I won't be able to like support myself in any way. So I'm gonna be fucked. And obviously, you guys know how I feel about the Brenda's Got a Baby story and how awful that shit is. That's like my worst nightmare, to just be Brenda and be like out here. And I feel like that happened to me anyway. No matter how fucking hard I tried, it still happened and it made me so mad. I was really mad. I was like scared and I was mad and I was just fucked up. It was just not good. Anyway, so what do I do then? So I kind of did like some web development boot camps. I had already done like enough classes, I think, at that point where I was like ready to transfer to a university. So I did that. I got into UC Davis as a computer science major. Um, oh my God. I now I have this baby. I have like a little bit of support, but I was like, yo, we got to kick this shit into high gear. So I went balls to the wall. I was like, yo, I'm just going to go like pretend like I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And I did at first, but then I actually like learned how to do shit. But it was really hard because every day after boot camp, I'd have to go back, and like fucking nurse a baby, like breastfeed, all that shit. Like, that's another video where we can talk about the first 5 years of life. But I will say, in about 2 years, I ended up being very financially stable, even, and I started getting like tech internships. And from those internships, I think the first year as a tech intern, I ended up making about $80,000 a year. So even as an intern, I was doing very, very well. And I was able to, like, financially support Mandarin immersion school. I paid for quite a lot of renovations on my family home, but I didn't have any real rent or anything. I ended up paying off my car. We took a couple of vacations. I mean, I done a lot, but I also invested a lot. I was kind of paying for everyone around me's life. And then there were other forms of income. I don't want to say pretend like there wasn't. Like, her dad worked full time. I think even now, like, he makes more now, but I think even then he was making about $70,000 a year. But he has his own household. Like, I had my household, and he had his household. So we didn't really share any bills because I had moved. Like, I will. So by the time my daughter was like 2, I'd moved back with my family. So we had 2 houses, and we were just like co-parenting from 2 houses. Um, and I will say, just to go back, because I'm trying to tie this into kind of work and this like legal foundation story. That was really weird because it was like there was only one girl who was in one boot camp. I don't even remember this girl's name, but she was another Habesha girl. And that's an important story. That is actually a really important lesson here about knowing who you are. Because as I was going through really foundational shit in my actual life as like the human Olivia, immediately another Habesha girl was able to see me and be like, yo, we can talk about this. And I was able to break down some very real shit to her that I couldn't express with anyone else. So, like, all the other people who we were like working with and who we knew, they had no idea what was going on, but she knew. And I think that was really important for me. And I think that was kind of the beginning of my like realization that, like, as Black women, especially like as Habesha women, as like African women, like, no matter where you go in the world, you will find one of us in that sphere. And I'm just encouraging you to like seriously lean on her, but like for real, because like having that shoulder to cry on, it means everything. Like, and if you don't use that, you might break alone. And breaking alone is not cool. Breaking alone is hard. Breaking alone is awful. Um Breaking alone is just really bad. It's really bad. And I don't even think this girl knew how much her shoulder meant to me at that moment, right? Because it was just her being compassionate. It was really just her listening. Like, she didn't really provide any like life shattering advice. It was just more like I needed her there as a person who was able to see me as a human, as a woman, okay, as a Black woman, as an African woman, as a Habesha woman in the world, and just be like, yeah, girl, like, I understand. And she could see the situation I was going through from so many lenses. She was able to understand the like the cultural barriers that I was dealing with, the woman barriers that I was dealing with, all these things. And then she was also able to like, introduce her own worldview, which I still think so helpful. Like, conversations that we had, like, I don't even talk to this woman anymore. But the fact that she was there and the things that I learned from her in that moment are with me right now and changed my life. I guarantee you. And like, I just really want like everyone who cares to really hear that. Like, hear me when I say that. Like, and she was there for a very short period of time, but it fucking meant everything. It meant everything. And like, I want other Black women specifically to know, like, when you need that shoulder, there is another Black woman around. Lean on her. Seriously, like, it might not seem like it's like that important to do so, but dealing with that shit alone would have been brutal. And I'm very happy I didn't. So, yeah.